Blog Talk Radio.
He is the last of his kind. All that remains of a once powerful nation. Some think he is a myth. Some believe he is the chosen one, who will bring balance to a world at war. And some will stop at nothing to destroy him.
Good morning, family, and blessings to you. I am Omega Ashanti, and I would like to welcome you to the Omega Morning Show. Today we will be discussing the mystery of melanin. On last week's segment, the question came up, what should we as the people call ourselves if not black? So today we will be honored with the counsel of Dr. Booker T. Coleman, and we will be covering the questions of why shouldn't we, as the people, call ourselves black? Where does the term color come from? What is melanin? Do Europeans have melanin? And why do they look different from us besides the color of their skin? On last week's segment, we discussed credit relief and ways to relieve mortgage debt and other debts. So if you would like to review last week's segment of the Omega Morning Show, you can find that link on YouTube, or you could go to my Facebook page, Omega Ashanti, Omega Ashanti, Ashanti, and that's on Facebook. And don't forget to check out my website, www.duemore.com, DUEMOOR.com. For those of you who are not familiar with Dr. Booker T. Coleman, he has covered several documentaries as well as done lectures across the world. And to call in or process anything to talk to the host, me, or my guest, Dr. Booker T. Coleman, don't hesitate to press 1. Okay? So with no further ado, we will be talking to Dr. Booker T. Coleman.
Hello, Hotep, my sister Omega Ashanti.
Hotep, brother, thank you for joining us this morning. How are you?
I am doing excellent, my sister. Thank you for inviting me.
No problem. I'm most definitely honored to have you here this morning. Could you tell the people a little bit about yourself for those who aren't familiar with your work, Doctor?
Well, I'm an educator from the Bronx. I worked in elementary schools in South Central Bronx for 31 years. I retired in July of '09. I'm presently a college professor. I teach in a state university, upstate New York, New Paltz, and I've been doing this since 2004. So education is my area of focus. Our children specifically, but from all the different grade levels. I've taught every grade. And I believe that culture is the cornerstone to our peoples being able to move forward with a clear agenda in order to do what's necessary, to battle a lot of the things that we focus. So I focus on curriculum development and staff development, and I visit various communities and I assist them in developing curriculum and I work with homeschoolers, and I work with people interested in educating our children.
Wonderful, brother, wonderful. All right. So we will be live, everyone, and don't forget, if you do want to call in and ask any questions, the number is 310-982-4184, and that is to listen in. But if you would like to ask me or my guest any questions, do not forget to press the number 1. So we're going to go ahead and get the ball rolling this morning with our first question. Why shouldn't we, as the people, refer to ourselves as black?
Why should we, or why should we not?
Why shouldn't we? Why should we not?
Well, to me, it doesn't really make a difference what you refer to yourself as. What's important to me is what you answer to and how you perceive.
Yes.
It appears to me that because of the conditions that we find ourselves in, we have a lot of different names for ourselves. And unfortunately, I find ourselves arguing sometimes over what we should call ourselves. And the bottom line is that when you look at the general description, is we are Africans in America. And sometimes it's not so much the label that you give yourself as much as it is your understanding of yourself, your culture, where your culture has been, and what you have to do. We spend too much of our time, I believe, discussing things that have no real significance to the most important things that we have to be focusing on. And so whatever we call ourselves, whether it is black or Negro, or you could even use the word that we tend not to want to use, it doesn't make a difference to me what we call ourselves. What's important to me is understanding who you are. And we spend a lot of our time discussing this. And there are so many different names that we have for us, and it appears to me that we're the only people that have it, specifically continental Africans, continental United States Africans. Because even when you look at people who come from other parts of the world, in the Caribbean, they refer to themselves as that particular place from the Caribbean. People that come from the continent refer to themselves as the country they come from on the African continent. It appears that only continental Americans have a problem, and the reason why we have this challenge is because we are the only people in the United States who were stripped of our personhood, reduced to chattel, and made to live a life without a reference to where we come from. We literally are a people that don't necessarily have a country, so to speak. So as an African people, we have to embrace ourselves and understand that it doesn't make a difference what we call ourselves, because all of those are nothing but illusions anyway. Because even as a Jamaican, what is a Jamaican? What is a Dominican? What is a Puerto Rican? What are these labels that we give ourselves? Because before you were in Jamaica, who were you? Before you were in Puerto Rico, who were you? So you can identify with the geographic location you come from, but the real issue is where on the planet do you come from? Where in the cosmos do you come from? And that is why, to me, the study of cosmology and the study of the story of cosmic creations is so important, because once you go to cosmology, then everybody is the same. And it doesn't make a difference where you come from or where you're from on the planet. Because there's a universal term now that you have to use for yourself. Even included children who may not know who their parents are, may not know who their father is. When you get cosmic, your biological parents are the ones that brought you in, but they are not your cosmic parents. So therefore, you belong to a larger connection when you go to the cosmos. So that as a human family, we're so tripped up on certain things, it doesn't allow us to fulfill our divine destiny. And that's what we have to be focused on. What is our divine destiny?
Okay. Highly noted, brother. With you saying that, another question came to mind. Do you feel like we should get our heritage traced back to see exactly where we came from?
Well, right now I think anyone that does that, there's no science that can tell you that right now.
Okay.
To me, I believe it's a sham. I'm sorry to tell people that because I know they've sometime invested money in it. But right now, there's no way to tell. It feels good to think that you're from this place or that place, but right now, your DNA structure does not allow you. Because no matter what you're going to find out, every human being is going to find out they're from somewhere in Africa, specifically Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, parts of the Congo, parts of Southern Africa. Just like this latest find coming up out of South Africa, they have found the lady, and they're finding new evidences of the original family, so that, I don't tell people what to do, but I don't believe that science right now can literally trace your ancestry back. Not right now. Maybe one day, but right now. And again, you do as you please. I believe everybody do what they would like to do, but I believe that money could be well spent somewhere else right now.
Okay.
You could buy a decent library right now for what you might pay to trace your lineage back. And even if you do, what are you going to do at that point?
Right. Excellent question. Okay. Well, we're going to move on.
But you see, my sister, I want to be very clear because I'm not into telling people what they should and should not do. Because it's very important. But I just believe that there are so many more important things that we have to focus on that will take us where we need to go, that I like to focus on what I believe are the important things.
Right.
Me.
And I do agree
I have my priority list.
Right. And I do agree that we do use a lot of time debating on what we should call ourselves as the people, but with being enlightened with so much information and being told that you can find out where you came from and, sending your DNA through the mail and things of that nature, giving your personal information over, the Internet will always be a risk. But people, if you have done that or you traced anything back and used that, I would like you to call in and give me some feedback on that. Okay, but at this moment, we're going to move on to the next question, and that question is, where exactly does the term color come from? Why did they decide to use the term color for melanoid people?
Well, what's interesting is that this whole concept of putting people in classified races came in the 1800s. I think Blumenbach was one of the ones that started this process, and that was purely to develop a stratified layer, a categorization of the human family in order to prove inferiority and superiority. And it was based on totally faulty evidence that never existed in the world before. But then you've got to get into the psychology of white supremacists to understand why they would develop something like that. And then you come to realize that, this idea of color, color doesn't exist. There is only one archetype. The archetype of the human family is the African. And biological climatology demands that this human organism be born in a warm tropical climate. It also demands that a human being born in this type of climate is going to be pigmented. And the characteristics is going to have, this individual is going to have a broad nose, a broad nasal index. It is going to have a large mouth. It's going to have a prognostic jaw, which is a jaw that juts out from the face. It's going to have a well-defined brow ridge, up where the eyebrows are. And that is going to come from its relationship with the sun. The sun is going to cause these characteristics to appear. As this individual is going to move away from the sun, it is going to need to continue to create the dynamic relationship between light and heat energy and the living organism. as it moves away from the sun, in order for this organism to survive, it is going to have to find new ways to be able to produce the vitamin D that is going to allow the body to function properly and to absorb calcium and things like that. And so as this African organism moved away from the hot equatorial belt of the Great Lakes region, the countries we call Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Congo, and Southern Africa, it is going to have to survive in the absence of that direct sun. And it's going to alter its characteristics. When it gets into the northern climates, which is going to be up around the upper part of Ireland and England and Germany and Holland and Sweden and Norway, this organism being hit with what's called the warm ice age is going to have to adapt to its surroundings of the absence of the sun. And in order to do that, this organism is going to depigment itself in order to let the little bit of sunlight that come be able to be absorbed by the body. And that is going to create who we today call the beginnings of who we today call the Eurasian. The hair texture is going to change. The nose is going to change. The mouth is going to change because of the absence of the sun.
And that seems like an answer one of my prior questions. Why do they look different from us? And I do not mean to cut you off, brother, but it seems like someone is calling in here with a question. So we're going to get here to this caller. Good morning.
Hello?
Thank you for calling the Omega Morning Show.
I'm glad to be here. This is Yona L. calling from Atlanta, Georgia. And
good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great. And how about you and everybody?
I am excellent, my brother. Good morning to you.
Yeah. And listening to your call and everything that the brother is saying, I agree with him 100%. One of the things that, and I was thinking in terms of myself, two things. Number one, about in terms of us as a people, and being that where we came from, that warm climate, that's a warm, caring climate, and that we as a people were warm, caring people. We were that way with each other. We were a community that worked and were concerned about each other. And when you're talking about that change that happened when they moved out of that warm, caring climate, that was development of a recessive gene that affected not only the physical characteristics but the mental characteristics as well. Because you find that person we're talking about is a very vicious, mean, and cruel, selfish individual that's not concerned about the whole, but only concerned about their self. And we see that in the way that they interact with us today, even to the point where that they have to try to justify their actions. And the only way they could do that was, as he was saying, about trying to come up with this idea that somehow there was a distinction between white people and black people, and that they had to somehow or other try to justify who they were, and by saying that they were superior, it justified their abusive criminal activity, the way they abused people. Because we were traditionally a loving, warm, caring people. We weren't violent, vicious, and cruel. So when we are confronted with someone who is that way, then we understand why that over the time they, quote unquote, conquered us, because we did not have that vicious, cruel streak in us. That was a recessive gene. But more to the point, what I really was calling about was when we were talking earlier, is about unity, about our people. And he was saying something about how that we were so involved with things that we couldn't focus on what was important, which was our spirituality and who we are and why we are here. And what I've seen is this whole system is designed to keep people so busy on a regular daily basis of just trying to survive that they don't have time to really explore what's really truth and just and right, which is our spirituality. You find people that they go to work, they come home, they're so tired, they want to just get out of that insanity. They sit down, they vegetate in front of a TV, and they lose what little intellect they have. Well, gradually over a period of time, as they're programmed by the whole system to not seek out the truth. And so my thing is that since we all know that there are problems, we know what problems are for the most part, but how do we come up with a true solution that will help us unite as a people? And I've seen that, for me, the problem is it roots in economics. It's not the only problem, but the focal point is economics. Everybody's so wrapped up trying to get a dollar so they can survive, and they don't realize that the reason they're struggling and working so hard to get that dollar is because they're nothing more than volunteered slaves. They volunteer to be slaves for the slave master under a new system where they think they're free, so consequently they don't constantly try to disrupt the system. They're not worried about constantly revolting against that system because they think they're free, and they're willing to actually give up their lives for slave wages. I mean, why else would somebody go to work for the plantation called Walmart or McDonald's or Burger King for wages so low that they have to go to the government and get food stamps to eat? They're working a full-time job. They've been, and so my thing is that by us following the Black Wall Street model of Tulsa, wherein we actually work together and unite and understand that by sharing our wealth as a community, we can solve this problem. But we've been indoctrinated to think that for some reason we can't work together, we can't interact together. We're always fighting. We got all these different groups and organizations claiming to want to do the same thing, but in fact they're all splinter groups because everybody's trying to do their thing rather than realizing that we're all trying to do the same thing, just from a different perspective. And so what I'm trying to do, and what I would love to hear your perspective on this, is I've set up an organization wherein we are developing products, our own products that we can sell to our people, not where they have to go out and spend discretionary funds, but products that they buy already. Mine is toothpaste. I know another brother's got toilet paper. And what we're trying to do is bring these products to our people.
Brother, now I want to make sure that we can all stay here on one accord.
I'm sorry, sister. Go ahead. I'll shut up. Go ahead. I've said enough, so I'll just listen.
You had a lot of vital points, and I do agree with you on a lot of things as far as economics and having the distraction of, the television and things of that nature. But is there a specific question you wanted to ask me or the guest this morning?
Yes. My question was this. Okay. As I said, my product is toothpaste, and now this brother's got information. So my question is this: how can we as a people work together to overcome the obstacles and focus on economics? Because that's my thing. I feel we can solve our economic disparity. The rest of the problems will be able to solve themselves. So how can we move forward from that concept of bringing the people together under a common banner, whatever it may be?
Okay. Brother?
It's interesting because as I was listening to Brother speak, you ask yourself this question: why are you on the earth? Why are you here? This is the ultimate question. Shakespeare had it: to be or not to be. What is our purpose on the planet? And when Brother was tracing back and talking about the way we were at one time, when we were you will create your entire life system according to how the nature around you treats you. When you are in a warm tropical climate, nature provides you with everything that you need. It provides you with your food and with your shelter, with your clothing. In fact, you don't need that much clothing, but you do have the options to make your clothing from all the different things in nature around you, from plant to animal life. You have the ability to clothe yourself. And therefore, if somebody was walking down the road in this tropical climate where everything is given to you by nature, you are on the road, you're traveling. You come to someone's farm and they're growing different foods and they're working, they're doing their thing. And you say, do you mind if I have some of the food, your mangoes or whatever it is that they grow on there? And the person, knowing that nature is going to resupply whatever they have, he is not covetous. She is not the type of person saying, no, you can't have any of this. Because in your mind, nature has taught you, look, I am going to give you whatever you need in great supply. So therefore, your attitude is take what you like. The person who wants the mango is not going to hoard mangoes all over their body because they know that down the road they're going to come upon someone else with other foods. So they're going to take what they need to eat at that moment. So the point I'm getting at is, as Brother was talking about the mindset, in a tropical climate where nature is giving and loving and constantly supplying you with things all around you, you don't have to hoard or covet things. You have a sharing attitude. So your mindset is one of sharing. However, in the Ice Age, where nature is extremely harsh, first of all, you create a God that's jealous and envious. You create a God that is covetous. You create a God that gives you permission to take from other people on his behalf. And so, therefore, you don't have that sharing mentality. So that the Africans that went into the northern climate created a very angry, created a very jealous, envious, murderous mentality, because that was the nature of the ice around them. They come back down into the southern world and they bring that attitude with them. And this is the world that we're living in right now. We are living in an Ice Age mentality where if I want what you have, I will take it. And so we have to look at the fact that not only did our physical being changed, but you got to go into the brain, into your limbic system, which is responsible for your feelings, and realize that you have 3 glands. You have your pineal gland, your pituitary gland, and your optic thalami. Your optic thalami is responsible for your emotional growth. Your pituitary gland is responsible for your physical growth. And your pineal gland is responsible for your spiritual growth. The unfortunate thing in the ice is that the African who would become the Eurasian, his and her pineal gland became calcified. Calcified is the hardening.
One moment, brother. I'm so sorry. One moment, brother. I don't mean to cut you off. We still have the guest online. Brother, did you ever get the answer to your question here?
Oh, I am getting them. He's right in tune. I'm following exactly. The things he's saying falls exactly in tune with the question I'm asking. It's a very complicated question. It has a complicated answer, and he's weaving it together so that it makes sense, because all of the dots have to be connected, and he's connecting them. So, yes, I am getting the answers.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure he was following you. Go ahead, brother.
He's right on track. He's
right on. I'm starting where he began his conversation, and I'm moving him into the area because we are living in a civilization and a society where what came through nature naturally, we now have to struggle and fight for in the jobs that we perform all day long. So you take a job at Crackdonald or in Walmart, you perform for 8 hours something that nature automatically gave you when you were in Africa. We are so busy now trying to pay our rent, which in nature was free, trying to put food on our table, which was free. We are now struggling to get things that at one time were free. So we are now being misdirected and redirected to spend a great deal of our time doing something that we never had to think twice of when we were in Africa. In other words, our divine purpose on the planet is over now. We are now doing things that we never had to do before. We are now having to fight for the basic things that the Creator gave us. We now have to work at the hands of being, as Brother said, enslaved. We are now enslaved. But we're enslaved in a different way. What became working for free has now become working for crumbs, where parents and people have to work 2 and 3 jobs in order to be able to just survive. So how are we supposed to be thinking of our divine purpose when we're too busy dealing with the devil's play? And so as it relates to the economy, I say this. We spend a great deal of our time marching. My point is, if you want to march to Brother's store where he is making his toothpaste, because that is going to move him forward, the work and the money that he makes by us supporting him is going to move us forward. Because what is behind economics is trade and communication, which allows us to get to know each other. We don't know each other, and we don't support each other because we're too busy trying to live to survive. Our divine purpose now. We are not working towards our divine purpose. People were not put on this earth to work at Walmart. That was not our divine purpose. We're doing that in order to survive. Our purpose is to contribute something to this planet that brings the planet forward. And my recommendations is that if you want to march to the nearest African store, because it is in supporting our own businesses that we're going to move forward as a people. And if we don't get that economic piece in place, then we are going to continue to falter where we are. Also, to black businesses, I say, you must be true to your customer. And the money that you make has to go back into the community in order to build the community to where it needs to be. We need to change the purpose of doing business, which is not to buy a bigger car, is not to buy more sneakers. It is to invest in the community to move the community forward. So in doing good business, we get good customers and back and forth because we were the ones that taught the world how to trade in the first place.
Agreed. Excellent. And brother, do you have? Go ahead.
I was going to ask the brother if he would interested in exchanging contact information with me because see, what I'm working on right now is we're putting together an international network. I already have a skeleton network, and anytime I contact someone who is like-minded, I always want to contact with them because we have to build the inner court so that the other people can see based on how we interact in the inner court. We can be on that nation on a hill that they can look to and say, that's how we want to be. We want to be like those people. And so,
my brother, you say you in Atlanta?
Yes, I am.
Have you touched base with the Black Business Network there?
I've talked to them. I will tell you one of the reasons why I'm not particularly crazy about what they do. Their products and things a lot of them are discretionary purchases, and they are cost prohibitive for a lot of people. And see, I'm more focused on doing things, providing with products that people they're mandatory purchases, things that we have to already buy anyway, and factoring them into the society so that a person doesn't have to do anything extra than they're ordinarily doing. Go ahead and buy your toothpaste from us. Buy your insurance from us. Buy your toilet paper, your paper towels from us. And then we recycle that money by instead of putting it in warehouses, we hire our people to deliver the products to your door so we can make it convenient for people. Because part of the problem is because they're so stressed out with living in the world, they don't have time to go over to where the black office or the black businesses is because by the time they get home, they're just devastated. So we want to take the profits we make and hire people who can't get hired anywhere else and let them deliver products to their person's door so it makes it extremely convenient for them to do business with us. And then, as you were saying earlier about the customer's always right, we let the customer know that if you ever have a question or problem, we don't want to dispute whatever it is. We're going to make it right. If we have to give you money back, we have to bring you a new product, whatever it is, we're going to keep you happy because we have to protect ourselves. And if we don't do that and make that customer stay with us, then they're going to go somewhere else. But
it's interesting because business, from what I've researched in the African model, what we presented to the world as a business person or as someone who created a product, that spoke of who we were as a person. And as you're speaking in terms of your product, your toothpaste, that it was a reflection of you. And so, therefore, it was demanded of you to do good business because it reflected who you were. It wasn't about the money, so to speak, although that brought you to the next level. It was about the reflection of you in the product that you produced. So in taking pride of your product, you want to make sure that your customer is proud to be a customer of you. And you, as the product producer, want to make sure that your product is forever growing. And we have to change the model in our mind of trade and communication. And in offering products that the community needs, and in offering products that the community wants, you begin to develop a relationship. And so when we get into economics, it's not about making money, although money is a means. The end product is a reflection of your divine gift that you have been given. We know that the care of your teeth, the care of your mouth, has a lot to do with how your body is going to function. Because sometimes the most dangerous things that impact the body come through your mouth. And so, therefore, your product, which is a toothpaste that would keep your teeth and your mouth clean, is very important to the health of the individual. And so, therefore, we have to look at our business differently. We're looking at business from a money perspective, and that is a Western paradigm. An African paradigm is, this is my purpose on the planet, and this is what I've been given to offer you. What you give me in return, because at one time we did not use money. We bartered what we had. If I grew oranges and someone else grew apples, we bartered apples and oranges. Or someone who had lettuce, or someone who had clothing, or someone who even was a barber. We bartered what we had with what they had. And so it becomes important that we change our economic paradigm and the purpose for why we're into business. And if we did that, we would then be able to start and to fuel this dynamic relationship that once existed on our planet. Money is an illusion. It is only given credit because someone says it has power. But money itself has no power.
You just said, I was just going to say, you said something incredible. I had
I'm sorry, brother. I don't mean to interrupt you. I'm so sorry, brother, but we do have another caller calling in who's been waiting here for a moment.
But I'm going to give you my contact information before we leave the program, my brother. I'll give my email address.
All right, thank you.
Okay, brother. Keep on keeping on.
All right. I'm still
Thank
here.
You so much for
I'm on mute, but I'll be here.
All right, and we're going to move on to the next caller here. Good morning. Thank you for calling the Omega Morning Show. Good morning. We might be having technical difficulties with this caller. We're just going to move on to the next question. I'm sorry about that, brother. The next question actually was, what is melanin? So we can get back on course here, but it was very interesting about the economics. But just so we can stay on topic here for the people, what is melanin?
Melanin is a molecule that is produced by a dynamic, energetic relationship in organisms. Melanin is found in the water. It is found in the air. It's found in the cosmos. It's found in human beings. That's what we want to focus on, melanin in human beings. And melanin in human beings is a molecule. Now, in order to understand it, you've got to go back to its smaller components. The carbon atom, you have, on the Earth, there are four basic and major atoms or elements: nitrogen, oxygen, hydrogen, and carbon. When it relates to nitrogen, oxygen, and hydrogen, you can only put no more than four of those atoms together to create a molecule. You can put 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen, that's water. 2 parts hydrogen, 2 parts oxygen, and that is hydrogen peroxide. But when you introduce carbon, the carbon atom, the number 6 on the periodic table of elements, when you introduce carbon to the mix, you create the billions of molecules that exist all around us. Carbon is like what's called the cosmic glue. Carbon is black in its nature. It is the darkness from whence all things come. Making up the melanin molecule, you have a melanosome. A melanosome is a granule. It is something inside the melanocyte. The melanocyte is the melanin cell. So you have, from its components, you have carbon, the melanosome that's in the melanocyte, which is the cell, and inside you have melanin. Melanin is what activates life. It is in every organ and gland in our body. Without it in your eyes, you couldn't see. Without it in your ears, you couldn't hear. Without it in your muscles, you couldn't flex. Without it in your skeletal system, you would not be able to function. Your skeletal system wouldn't be able to function. It's in all of your organs, and it's in all of your glands. It's in your blood system. It's everywhere. When the fetus is first formed, when it's called the blastula, it is then within the entire nature that is going to become that human being. It is the melanin that fuels the production and the division, the mitosis, of this particular human being that's about to become a fully grown infant into a human being. And so melanin becomes extremely important to life. It's in the heavens. When you look up into the sky, everything is black. That's cosmic melanin. Stars are formed from dark matter that has been pushed in on itself through dark energy, and the implosion that occurs is what creates the stars. So stars are crystallized blackness, just as diamonds are crystallized blackness. So that melanin becomes very important, and it's another great advantage that the well-melanated individual has. Now, there are different forms of melanin. You have skin melanin, but that's an organ melanin because your skin is your largest organ. You have neuromelanin, which is in your brain and your central and your peripheral nervous system. And your internal melanin is called eumelanin, E-U-M-E-L-A-N-I-N. And that is what life is about. Life is about the production of melanin that allows you the energy to perform your life's deeds. And that's why when you watch people, everybody wants to be black.
Agreed.
While on one hand they're telling you how bad black is, how everything that black folk have is ugly, from your hair to the width of your nose to the size of your lips to the color of your skin, while they're telling you how ugly it is, all of them are trying to get that. So somewhere along the line, as African people, we have to just stop and ask ourselves, wait. If my skin color is so bad, why are you risking your life to look like me? If my lips and if my body is built a certain way, and you say it's ugly, I'm out of shape, I'm overweight, why are you moving all sorts of fat cells throughout your body to have a backside like mine, or the front part of my body like mine? Why is it on men one of the first things that they go after is to castrate black men? Why is the first thing you want to do is take off my reproductive organ? Maybe it's because you want it.
That is so true.
And as black folk, we're so caught up in being inferior, we're not putting this together. So, in short, that's what melanin.
Where did the term melanin itself come from in ancient times?
They say it's a Greek word.
What exactly is carbon, so the people can get a better understanding?
Well, melano basically comes out of, they say, the Greek vocabulary, which means black.
Okay.
So even the word melano, comes out of the concept of black. They say it's a Greek term, melanos. Okay. Carbon is an atom. It's it's in science, as you study physical science and you study chemistry, you have a periodic table of elements. And every atom that exists, the original natural ones from 1 to 92, they have all been classified. But there's only one atom, and the atom that exists is the hydrogen atom.
Okay. And do you find it ironic? Do you find it ironic that it's made of the elements of 666, and that's also, identified as being the mark of the beast, or is that coincidence? What do you think about that? Well, the 666 comes from the 666 is 6 protons, 6 neutrons, and 6 electrons. And it's 666. No, I'm not surprised, because most things that relate back to black origins they create superstitions around them in order for you not to delve into them. See, if they give you things that are signs of evil, you'll never investigate them. Right. And so whenever this society tells me something is bad, I normally think it's good, because that's how I function. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad used to say that the black man's heaven is the white man's hell, and the white man's heaven is the black man's hell. And so normally when I'm told something by those who would wish to down-press me, I normally find that to be most advantageous for me. And so I've never really taken the time to pay attention to what they say. So when they say that 666 is the sign of the devil, and then they say black people are the devil, then I sort of kind of think that whatever 666 represents, it's in my favor to know what it is. When they tell you that it's bad luck for a black cat to cross my path, and then I realize that the black cat was sacred to ancient Africans, who was given the name Bastet. He was the feminine principle of resurrection. Then I realized it looks like we're having a caller call in with a question here for you. That is very deep, enlightening. And don't forget, people, you can call in and press 1 in order to guess a question. Thank you for joining the Omega Morning Show. You're live.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning. Thank you for calling the Omega Morning Show.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you just fine.
Okay. Well, this is Reverend Dennis. I'm your number one fan. And I want to put an input in, especially about the black everything. You've heard of the black hole. We've heard of, like you said, the black cat. Anything that got to do with black has always been always assumed negative. And I was listening to your call, and I was talking about y'all really going somewhere, and I really appreciate this information, because it does a lot for my heart. But my one question I do have is for, why is it just like he was just talking about everything that the black has, they wanted, they try to copy it, from our lips to our hips and our fingertips, everything. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I hear you. Sound good.
Oh, okay. Now, here's my thing that I've been listening to, and you just hit it right on the head. I just really want to say thank you for just making it so clear, and you described it so in your face. It seemed like everyone, not just the Europeans, basically everyone is trying to copy the black man. But have you ever noticed that any time that we mate with a white or any other of them, if they got one drop of black blood in them, they automatically call them black. They're automatically black if they look more Indian or whatever. If they got any black blood in it, they say that their blood has been tainted.
That's agreed.
That was the. Okay, go ahead, sir.
No, I'll follow you, brother. I'll let you complete your thought.
Yeah. That was basically it. That was basically it. That was basically it. I was just how strong. Just going to show how strong that we really are.
Well, we are the only. See, as a human family, when we study the human organism, and when we put aside the emotions of white supremacy and all the horrible things that we've experienced as a human family over time, we come to realize that there is only one race on the planet.
Come on.
There's only one race, and that is the human race.
Yes, that's it.
That's the bottom line. And the archetype of humanity, nature has it that the way in which life came on this planet, that plants were born to be green.
Yes, right.
With the chlorophyll. That is what nature has told us. That what brings life in the botanical world into existence, with the impact that the sun has on botanical life, the chlorophyll makes botanical life green. Now, by that I mean you may have many different beautiful color flowers, but what brought those colors into existence was the green of the plant. Plants were born to be green. Humans were born to be black and dark brown. That's nature. Mm-hmm. That's not personal. That's not superior or inferior. That is a scientific fact. And as this organism, as plants moved away, and as plants are found around the world, where I am in New York City, when it gets cold, green life dies.
That's right.
And in the springtime, when it starts to get warm, green life is resurrected and it's born again. That's science.
Mm-hmm.
Life doesn't exist in the cold. It dies in the absence of the sun, in the absence of light and heat energy. That's science. That's not personal. The human being was born to be black. And as this organism moved away from the hot climate of Africa, Central East Africa, it began to change its pigmentation. And they changed the pigmentation in order for them to survive the absence of the sun.
That's right.
And so now, when Eurasians see us, they want to now go back to their archetype. But they are so caught up in their fear of their original self that they make the original self bad, but they spend their life trying to be like it, which to me is founding on psychopathic, sociopathic behavior. And that's why they conduct themselves that way, and that's why they treat us the way they do, because they want to be us, but they are afraid of what will happen when they return to the promised land.
Mm.
Now, that's science. That's not personal. Look at how they act. Don't believe me. Look at how they act. Look at how they conduct themselves. And that is your answer.
Yeah, I'll agree. I'll agree very soulfully, because I have a lot of things that's in question about stuff. I'm constantly viewing and reviewing from why they came in the beginning and got us under the excuse me. They're the one that they prohibited us. They kept us down and kept us from being now who we are. We couldn't speak our own language. But we're not gonna go into that one. That's a whole different subject. But what I'm saying is, when somebody's always oppressing you, and then when you decide to stand back up, then you're the enemy. But all the time they want to be like you. I'll agree with that sociopathic logic, because that's just fear. They're operating out of fear.
Mm-hmm.
The greatest enemy on our planet.
Excuse me?
The greatest enemy on our planet is ignorance.
That's correct.
Ignorance gives birth to twins. Fear, false evidence appearing real, and denial. Fear and denial give birth to white supremacy. Or supremacy of any sort.
Right, that's it.
So we have got to, so I see our enemy is not a person. Our enemy is ignorance in that person.
Come on.
And that's why education becomes so important to me, because it is through education. See, my enemy in the classroom is not a student, it is ignorance. I battle ignorance in the classroom as a teacher. And as a person becomes enlightened, as the person becomes self-reflective, they are then able to look within, to see the divine, the divinity within. And when they see the divinity within, they can see the divinity without. And so, therefore, what becomes fear and denial now becomes courage and acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way that I can ever understand someone else's Holocaust is when I understand my own. And so we as an African people, particularly continental United States Africans, have to study our history. There are people from all around the world coming to America with all sorts of ideas about who we are as Africans here in America. But what they don't know is that the very nature of why they escaped their country to come here is because of the struggle that African people fought in this continent in order to make their life better. When the civil rights laws were broken down in the 50s and 60s, the immigration laws were broken down. That is why so many people are able to come to America, is because of our struggle. Whether you are from Asia or from Africa or the Caribbean, the reason why you are here able to get the job that you got is because we fought and put our life on the line as Africans in America, from the American Revolution straight up to the Iraq and Afghanistan conflict. We are the reason not only why you are here, we built the economic industrial system of the Western world. I ain't asking you to give me nothing. I'm just telling you, respect the source.
That's right.
That makes you who you are. Don't forget, African Americans put their life on the line to open up this country for you. You're not here because they like you. You're here because you're escaping conditions in your country where you can't better yourself. So therefore, you come here. But what allowed you to come here was our struggle. Respect that. And understand, when you see us going through our changes and our tribulations and our unfortunate misunderstandings of who we are, that we would gun each other down, that we would murder each other, it is a result of the pain of being enslaved and not knowing who you are. I'm not giving no excuses. I'm just citing a reason. You don't know what African Americans have been through. You weren't here then. We have been through hell. And these are the results of living in hell with the devil himself. And eventually, we're going to solve this. We're going to take care of this. We're going to reach out to our Bloods and to our Crips. We're going to reach out to all of those gangs and organizations that are acting inappropriately. We're eventually going to take care of our business, because that's what we always do.
That's
but
right.
In the meantime, you better understand what made all this happen, because guess what? It's going to happen to you.
I thank you so very much, and it's been a pleasure conversating with you. You're very enlightening, and I praise your intelligence as well as your passion. And I thank you again, Queen Ashanti, for listening to me, and may God continue to bless you and do more.
Hotep to you, brother. Thank you for all that you do.
Okay.
And thank you for calling in this morning.
You're
all
more
right.
than welcome.
In 5 minutes, we'll be going to a commercial. We're just going to keep the segment moving. I heard you say at the beginning of the program that everything in life starts with melanin. And I was just wondering, real quick, what exactly makes us superior? Because we know that we have melanin, and Europeans do as well. But what defects or what do they lack because of their lack of melanin?
Their challenge is the production of melanin, particularly in the skin. Blackness captures, when Reverend earlier spoke about black holes are cosmic entities that draw and capture everything in its environment, and it pulls it into the whole. Well, black folk, in our pores are like black holes. When the light and heat energy in the sunlight shines on us, our darkness draws and captures that light and heat energy. And you have 5 layers in your skin. You have 2 basic areas of your skin. You have an epidermis, and then under you have the dermis. Epidermis is your top layer. You have 5 layers. Stratum is the layer. It means layer, stratum. You have a stratum corneum, stratum luciderm, stratum granulosum, stratum spinosa, stratum basale. See, this is why I say to us as a people, we have to study. Because what I'm talking about right now is science. And it's important that we study science and math and all the different... We created those subjects. And our great African scientists were in laboratories before Europeans ever existed, studying this information.
Right. Is that where they get chemistry from?
Well, chemistry comes from what we call Egypt, al-Kemet. We called it Kemet.
Right.
When Africans went into Europe, the Moors went into Europe 710 to 1492. They brought this science of the laboratory into Europe, and in Europe it was called al-Kemet. And al-Kemet now has become chemistry.
Are the Moors and the Egyptians the same people?
They are from the same base, but they're not necessarily the same people. The Africans of Inner Africa that traveled into what we today call Egypt also traveled west. And so waves of scientists traveled throughout Africa for thousands of years. So in a sense, the Egyptians or the Kemites and the Moors come from the same solid group, the bigger group that's known as the Gadamantes in history. They're known as the Gadamantes. Mm-hmm. And the Gadamantes are Africans that are going to move north from Inner Africa after born in this Great Lakes region. These same Gadamantes are then going north. They're going to travel west. And they're going to continue this flow of human movement so that all the information that is traveling even to Senegal is going to come via all of these African priests and priestesses that are sharing this information in the laboratory. They eventually are going to go into Spain and Portugal with this information, and they are going to set up shop from 710 to 1492 A.D. That's another thing we don't learn in our history class, that Africans actually brought Europeans out of their dark ages to the point where we call this the Renaissance, the rebirth. And the rebirth of Europe was because the midwife and the mid-husband, the mother and father of this rebirth, of this child, of Da Vinci and Galileo and Copernicus, was African people. That's our history. I mean, we did this.
Yes.
And I tell people, don't believe me. I'm not here to make you believe me. I am simply here to make you think.
Yes.
And
wasn't that why the
I'd like
statue
those that are
was sent
listening
over
to
here
contact.
to the state?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Yes. I said it's most definitely proof in what you're saying. Isn't that why the original Statue of Liberty was sent here over to the States to honor what we have done for their civilization? Well, they had no civilization, but for what we have done for them.
Well, the original Statue of Liberty was meant to be an African woman. You know, when you look at the builders, you know, Laboulaye was a French abolitionist who in 1865 was in a dinner party. And Bartholdi, who liked to build big things, he was a builder, engineer, and they decided that they wanted to honor the freeing of African people. And so they created this concept of creating a Statue of Liberty. And this was the original model, and if you don't believe that, go to France and look in Paris, and you'll see one of the Statues of Liberty that it was meant to be. And it's of a black person, black women, to be exact. And so this history is here, but they just don't put it in the books to teach the children. And then when you talk about it, they call you a racist.
True.
And that again goes back to that sociopathic behavior that it's called in psychology. It's called dynamic projection, where you project on the person you wish to oppress your inner feelings of yourself. So now I'm a racist because I want to study my history. And they're caught up believing that if I love myself, I would have to hate Europeans, because Europeans know that they set the paradigm up in order for them to love themselves. They have to hate black people. And that's just not how black folk function. We don't think like that. We don't think in terms, for me to love me doesn't mean I have to hate someone else. I have not built up the love of self standing on the neck of somebody else. I built the love of myself standing on my 2 feet on the ground. I don't need to put someone else down, make me feel better about myself. I feel better about myself because I know what I have achieved and who I am. And as an African people, we have to start thinking on that level and move beyond the superficial life that we have been made. Going back to the brother that was speaking about his product, we have to go back in order to go forward.
Yes. For everyone who is just now tuning in, we are live here on the Omega Morning Show. If you would like to call in and ask any questions, don't forget to press 1. We will be going through a commercial shortly here. Speaking on the economics, we're touching bases on that and how we should support black businesses, but we're mainly focusing on melanin. But it's very important that we support one another. And, brother, could you give them some of your contact information if they would like to network with you or have any further questions or anything they wanted to ask you, a way that they can reach you or plug into you?
Email me. I'd like you to email me, and I'll send you my study guide. Study guide is 70 pages. And it's an outline of the direction that we can take as it relates to studying our history and our culture. My
and
email
where can
address,
they email you at, brother?
Kamene777@AOL.com. KAMENE 777 AOL.com. KAMENE 777 @AOL.com.
All right, and if you're just now joining us and you missed the first half of the segment, you can also check out the beginning of the segment on YouTube. I'll have this uploaded. We're going to do a quick commercial, and we'll be right back after a short message.
How do you become homeless? I like to talk about that, especially in light of things that we've seen happen in our country the last 2 years. We have, in fact, seen the creation of...
Greetings, family. I am Omega Ashanti, bringing you DoMore.com, which is not only a movement, it is an art form, offering clothing for royalty. Check out DoMoreFashion.com and purchase a tee, which represents you and your awareness of your true identity, which is backed by knowledge, not belief. Do More Fashion, a clothing line with real passion. The Omega Morning Show, every other week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Clip on Hidden History are uploaded every Sunday. www.domore.com. History Classroom is what you click on. Hoping to enlighten and empower the community mentally, economically, and furthermore reestablishing our motto, awareness, prosperity.
The truth is, you must be in business for yourself. Now let's take a look at this. Dial this number, 972-999-9277 for the 2-minute message. When you're done, call Tahaka 904-303-9061. You got to be in business for yourself. For the hottest business opportunity going today, dial 972-999-9277. That's 972-999-9277. When you're done, call Tahaka 904-303-9061. The greatest business opportunity this century. Don't miss it.
All right, and we're back with the Omega Morning Show. We are live with Mr. Booker T. Coleman, and we have covered several topics, and we have 20 minutes left in this segment. So if you would like to call in at 310-982-4184, and if you would like to speak with myself or the guest, don't forget to press 1. We're doing a segment on the Moors, and we're going to on melanin, and we're going to keep the ball rolling. We have already covered the questions of why we as the people should not refer to ourselves as black. Where does the term color come from? What exactly is melanin? And why do Europeans look different from what we look like? And do Europeans have melanin, which he has answered. All right, brother. Are you still with us this morning?
I am with you, my sister Omega Ashanti.
All right. So I guess the next question we have up here for you, which you touched bases on it earlier, why does our appearances differ from theirs as Europeans?
Well, it goes back to the sun. And whether you're dealing with morphology, which is the structure of the body, or you're dealing with physiology, which deals with the physical appearance, everything that we are, everything that we look like, all comes from the organism's relationship with the sun. And that is why to the ancient world the sun was so very important, because it was the lifeline to everything that we were. And so it goes back to the sun, from the color of our skin to the width of our nose to the size of our lips to the structure of our body, the length of our arms, our size. Everything goes back to the sun and our relationship with the sun and where we are in relationship to the sun.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And how did they develop these different features? Their hair, their nose. Why does our features differ from theirs?
Well, when you look at when you are in the heat, in your hair follicle, inside of the shaft, there are packets of an oily substance known as sebum, S-E-B-U-M, sebum. And periodically, those packets explode and send the oily substance to the scalp or to the skin, up the hair follicle. It bathes the skin, and the relationship of the heat of the sun to the sebum create a kink in the hair. And all I ask is for all of us, we realize that in the hot weather, our hair is curlier than in the winter, so that the sebum protects the scalp from the harmful rays of the sun, and the heat kinks the hair. It makes it form an elliptical shape, which is what we call kinky or nappy hair.
Yes.
As we moved away from the sun, there was no more of a need to protect the scalp. So the sebum attached itself to the hair follicle, and that's what made the hair become straight. It weighed down on the hair and made the hair straight. So the Eurasian hair is straight because the sebum no longer was needed to protect the scalp and didn't cook, so to speak, on the scalp. in the heat of the sun. So it was allowed to remain, and in so doing, it made the hair straight. When this organism went further north into countries like Sweden and Norway, Denmark, the melanin in the hair no longer existed, and so the hair went from being black to light brown to red to blonde and to platinum, because that's the sign of a lack of melanin in the hair. The eyes in the heat are black. As this organism moved north, the same thing that made their hair blonde made their eyes green and blue. It's the lack of melanin in the eyes.
Mm.
The nose that was wide contracted in the cold. Heat expands, cold contracts. It had the nose become aquiline. It made the lips become small. It made the mouth revert in. Africans, the cranial structure of an African is known as prognathic, which means that the jaw juts out. It protrudes from the face. That's what the heat does to the face, to the skull. As you got into the colder climate, the jaw went from being prognathic to orthognathic, which means that the jaw begins to jut in. Say again?
Yes, you did.
I mean,
Go
this
ahead,
is
brother.
science.
I'm sorry.
We're talking science, my sister Omega Ashanti. We're not talking superiority or inferiority.
Yes.
I have not once said anything about being superior. I'm talking about being first.
Yes. And I want to make sure that the people were following you with the terminologies, so that they can.
Well, see, the thing is this: we have to study. Right. We have to study our history. We have to study what it is that we're talking about here, because I teach this to my 5th graders. I taught this to my 6th graders. I teach this to my high school and to my college students.
Right.
So that if our family who's listening to this program, if these are terms they've never heard before, that is the detriment to the educational system that doesn't teach us. But why are people who suffer from recessivity going to teach you of your dominance?
Right.
African people can create every people that exists, but a Chinese person cannot create an African, but an African can create a Chinese person.
Agreed. And before we went on break, we spoke on racism. I'm sorry, brother. And before we went on break, we spoke on racism. I wanted to get more in depth with that. Can you explain to the people, because a lot of people like you say, oh, well, you know, not to get off topic, slavery's over. A lot of people like to say, well, racism doesn't exist. Could you explain to them exactly what is racism? Because how can they know that it's over if they don't know what it is?
Well, you know what's interesting? Let's approach it from a scientific perspective.
Okay.
And that is that all humans, there is only one race on the planet. And that race is the African race. That's the only race on the planet. In what I just said, racism cannot exist. Because racism can only exist if there's more than one race. What Europeans did was create the concept of race and then created a classification of race. So therefore, if you create a white race, a yellow race, a red race, and a black race, then you can have racism. But if there is only one race, you cannot have racism. Let me take it another level as it relates to science. If there is only one race, you cannot have an interracial marriage. Because if there's only one race, inter means amongst many. You can have an intraracial marriage, but you cannot have an interracial marriage. So I bring this up not to confuse, but to show you how confusing Europeans are. Because they have created an illusion that we have bought into. And if someone creates an illusion and you buy into it, their illusion becomes your reality. So racism as a word doesn't exist. White supremacy, white domination exists. But racism from a scientific perspective doesn't exist. But white supremacy or depigmentation supremacy exists. And that is saying that the closer you are to being depigmented, the closer you are to blue eyes, the closer you are to blonde hair, the closer you are to being supreme over the others who do not have those characteristics.
Yes, yes. And we have 2 callers calling in, so I'm going to go ahead and get live with them.
Good morning. How you doing?
Good morning,
My name
and thank you for calling the Omega Morning Show.
Thanks for having me. This is Herbie Gaffney. What's up, Ashanti Omega? You my cuz. I love you. I want to say I'm proud of you first and foremost. And I've been listening.
How are you?
I'm blessed, sis. You already know. I've been tuned in since the beginning, man. You're a positive brother. And my question is, since you're on the topic of racism, is it safe to say that if it's only one race, if you can't have racism with more than one race, is it safe to say now times in 2015 does modern slavery exist? Modern day slavery, like now times is slavery existing in 2015?
Now, let's step back for a moment and examine slavery. Because first, the word slave, according to J.A. Rogers, comes from Europe. It's a European word. Slave, the first slaves were the Yugoslavians and the Czechoslovakians. Slav is a European term. Slave came out of them being the first to be enslaved. Now, the concept of African slavery didn't exist. Africans didn't have slaves. Africans may have had servants, but they didn't have slaves. The European form of what we call slavery, or to be enslaved, is unique to the world. It never existed before, because the enslavement, according to the European doctrine, became an institution and a law. Prior to European enslavement, slavery, or the enslavement of another human being, was never a law. It was a social condition. You see, what Europeans did was they created, in their illusion, they created a set of laws that took a human being and equalized them to chattel. It's called chattel slavery. They equated a human being to a dog and to a cow that never existed in the world's history before.
Exactly. I just was concerned, man, because like nowadays, like I'm from New Jersey. I grew up in Jersey City, New Jersey, migrated to Indiana, and Indiana was like the base home of the KKK. You know what I mean? So I was just curious to know, is it really, really a such thing as modern day slavery? I hear people walking around lost, I'm a slave, I work for this person, work for that person. They must be lost in their mind to feel that way, because I don't. I'm an entrepreneur, young black man. I'm gifted. You know, all my family members actually work for themselves, either do hair, barbers, professional people. You know what I mean? So I just was curious to know about if it's modern-day slavery, you know, along with the other topics we was talking about, the melanin and things, because I'm definitely a positive black man, and I'm nobody's slave. So I just was concerned with that.
Well, you know, brother, being enslaved is a mental thing.
Right.
A slave exists in the mind. There were people who were enslaved on the plantations of America and never were a slave. They were prisoners held against their will.
True.
Slavery is
That's
a mental thing. Because we got people right now who are slaves in the mind.
Exactly.
White supremacy only exists because people believe it still exists. But if you know the truth, and if you understand who you are, and you understand what the world is, then you determine for yourself what your world is. So when you claim that you are an entrepreneur, that you are not enslaved, you are not enslaved.
Exactly.
Because you've called into being your condition. Now, someone else might treat you a certain way. But if you don't, that's why I said it's not what you call yourself, it's what you answer to that's important.
Exactly.
You see, so that you have determined for yourself who you are as a cosmic being that goes beyond anything that a European could ever tell you. So if in your mind you are who you are, that's who you are. Now, if somebody else interprets you to be who you are through their interpretation, that has nothing to do with you, because I tell people all the time, your personal opinion of me is none of my business.
That's right. You're telling the truth. I know that.
You know what I'm saying, brother? So what African people have to do, they have to take on your persona. They have to take on your way of thinking. You are who you say you are, not who other people say you are. It is not what people call you, it's what you answer to. And what you answer to is what you freely accept as who you are. And so our people, in pain, as they are, not all, but some, we have got to, those who believe within that we are who we are, we have got to, through love and determination and unconditional respect of our people, understanding by matter of degree, by the grace of God, there go I. I was born and raised in a project in New York City. I was born and raised under the conditions that I could have turned out any number of ways.
True that.
But
absolutely.
For the divine purposes, I and many of my friends and many of the people from projects all over the country were able to view ourselves as worthy divine humans with a destiny to fulfill. Some of our people may not have had that for whatever reason. And it is up to us through divine respect and love to work with them, to, as Harriet Tubman, go back onto the plantation to bring our people forward. Harriet Tubman was the conductor of the Underground Railroad that freed the African body. We, in this generation, are conductors on the Underground Railroad to free our people's minds.
Right.
So you keep doing what you're doing, you keep talking like you're talking, and other folk will, by your example, follow what it is that you are saying to them, and they will free themselves within the mind, because being enslaved is a mental thing.
Right. I'm going to say that to people, too, because there's a lot of people around in the community where I live in, they just lost, blind, and don't know their truth, their history. They don't study enough. I got knowledge of self. I study. I read. I was raised a certain way. You know what I mean? I had two parents that taught me the truth. So I just try to spread the same thing to the people. And Ashanti's actually
example,
my cousin.
brother.
I definitely will. Ashanti,
no doubt.
My
and
cousin,
contact me,
email
me, brother, and I'll send you my study guide that pretty much takes us through a process of studying our history and culture.
I absolutely will, most definitely. It's a pleasure talking to you. Thanks for answering my question. Ashanti, you know I love you, cousin. I'm proud of you, okay? Keep doing what you're doing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for calling in. I love you. And we have another caller here on the line. We're running low on time, so what we're going to do is we're going to get this last call in, and we're going to make sure that this brother leaves his contact information so that you guys can get a hold of him after this broadcast is over. Okay? All right, you're live. Thank you for calling the Omega Morning Show. Hello? All right, it seems like this person may be having some technical difficulties. Brother, are you still here with us?
You talking to me, my sister?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, I tried to link in another caller, but it seems like they were having some difficulties hearing us this morning.
Okay.
Would you like to give the people your email address again so they will be able to get your study guide to be able to contact you?
Kamene777@AOL.com. 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 Email me. I'll send you my free of charge.
Go ahead. All right. Well, that concludes our show for today. We covered the segment on melanin. We had Dr. Booker T. Coleman here with us this morning. I hope that everyone had their calls in. If you did miss anything, you can check out this episode on YouTube at the Omega Morning Show. We do appreciate everything and everyone for tuning in this morning. And thank you so much. I was very honored to have you here with us this morning, brother.
No doubt. It is my pleasure, my honor, my sister Omega Ashanti. I wish you the best in the future, and I look forward to the future. And to the family, just keep on keeping on, because it ain't over till we win.
Amen to that. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
And you guys tune in.
Greetings, family. I am Omega Ashanti, bringing you DoMore.com, which is not only a movement, it is an art form, offering clothing for royalty. Check out DoMoreFashion.com and purchase a tee, which represents you and your awareness of your true identity, which is backed by knowledge, not belief. Do More Fashion, a clothing line with real passion. The Omega Morning Show, every other week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Clip on Hidden History are uploaded every Sunday. www.domore.com. History Classroom is what you click on. Hoping to enlighten and empower the community mentally, economically, and furthermore reestablishing our motto, awareness, prosperity, and unity.